Καλησπέρα και καλώς ήρθατε σε άλλη μια λέξη εκφραστικής ανάγνωσης εν μέσω κορονοϊού 2022. Όπως βλέπετε πιάσανε τα κρύα και για το λόγο αυτό σκέφτηκα ότι θα ήταν ωραία να επισκεφτούμε τον βορρά της Ευρώπης και συγκεκριμένα την Φινλανδία και το δικό τους εθνικό επικό ποίημα, την Kalevala, η οποία είναι ουσιαστικά μία συλλογή από διάφορα ποίηματα τα οποία κυκλοφορούσαν στις φινλανδικές περιοχές και τις οποίες τις μάζεψε και επεξεργάστηκε στη μορφή που την έχουμε σήμερα ο Elias Lönnrot. Μπορούμε να σκεφτούμε το έργο που έκανε αυτός, μια λαογραφική εργασία ουσιαστικά, αντίστοιχη των δικών μας εδώ στην Ελλάδα, λαογράφων που κατέγραψαν, ας πούμε, τις παραλογές, τα δημοτικά μας τραγούδια, ή των αδερφών Γκριμ που κάνανε το ίδιο πράγμα για τα παραμύθια της ευρύτερης περιοχής της Γερμανίας. Η Kalevala είναι ένα μεγάλο έπος, φυσικά δεν θα το διαβάσουμε όλο, αλλά οι δύο πρώτες ραψοδίες, όπως θα τις λέγαμε εμείς, έχουν έντονα στοιχεία της δημιουργίας του κόσμου και έτσι μαζί με την ποιητική εισαγωγή στο κείμενο της σαν προήμιο, θα το λέγαμε εμείς, θα διαβάσω το προήμιο και τις δύο πρώτες ραψοδίες της Kalevala σε αγγλική μετάφραση του John Martin Crawford. Είναι κάπως παλιά μετάφραση, αλλά τι να κάνω, αυτό βρήκαμε. Mastered by desire impulsive, by a mighty inward urging, I am ready now for singing, ready to begin the chanting of our nation's ancient folk song handed down from bygone ages. In my mouth the words are melting, from my lips the tones are gliding, from my tongue they wish to hasten when my willing teeth are parted, when my ready mouth is opened, songs of ancient wit and wisdom hasten from me, not unwilling. Golden friend and dearest brother, brother dear of mine in childhood, come and sing with me the stories, come and chant with me the legends, legends of the times forgotten, since we now are here together, come together from our roamings. Seldom do we come for singing, seldom to the one, the other, o'er this cold and cruel country, o'er the poor soil of the Northland. Let us clasp our hands together, that we thus may best remember. Join we now in merry singing, chant we now the oldest folklore, that the dear ones all may hear them, that the well-inclined may hear them, of this rising generation. These are words in childhood taught me, songs preserved from distant ages, legends they that once were taken from the belt of Väinämöinen, from the forge of Ilmarinen, from the sword of Kaukomieli, from the bow of Youkahainen, from the pastures of the Northland, from the meads of Kalevala. These my dear old father sang me, when at work with knife and hatchet. These my tender mother taught me, when she twirled the flying spindle. When a child upon the matting, by her feet I rolled and tumbled. Incantations were not wanting over Sampo and over Louhi, Sampo growing old in singing, Louhi ceasing her enchantment. In the songs died wise Vipunen, at the games died Lemminkainen. There are many other legends, incantations that were taught me, that I found along the wayside, gathered in the fragrant copses, blown me from the forest branches, culled among the plumes of pine trees, scented from the vines and flowers, whispered to me as I followed flocks in land of honeyed meadows, over hillocks green and golden, after sable-haired Muriki and the many-coloured Kimo. Many runes the cold has told me, many lays the rain has brought me, Other songs the winds have sung me. Many birds from many forests oft have sung me lays in concord, waves of sea and ocean billows, music from the many waters, music from the whole creation, oft have been my guide and master. Sentences the trees created, rolled together into bundles, moved them to my ancient dwelling, on the sledges to my cottage, tied them to my garret rafters, hung them on my dwelling portals, laid them in a chest of boxes, boxes lined with shining copper. Long they lay within my dwelling, through the chilling winds of winter, in my dwelling place for ages. Shall I bring these songs together, from the cold and frost collect them? Shall I bring this nest of boxes, keepers of these golden legends, to the table in my cabin, underneath the painted rafters, in this house renowned and ancient? Shall I now these boxes open, boxes filled with wondrous stories? Shall I now the end unfasten of this ball of ancient wisdom, these ancestral lays unravel? Let me sing an old-time legend that shall echo forth the praises of the beer that I have tasted, of the sparkling beer of barley. Bring to me a foaming goblet of the barley of my fathers, lest my singing grow too weary, singing from the water only. Bring me too a cup of strong beer, it will add to our enchantment, to the pleasure of the evening, Northland's long and dreary evening, for the beauty of the day dawn, for the pleasure of the morning, the beginning of the new day. Often I have heard them chanting, often I have heard them singing, that the nights come to us singly, that the moon beams on us singly, that the sun shine on us singly. Singly also Wainamoinen, the renowned and wise enchanter, born from everlasting ether of his mother, Ether's daughter. In primeval times a maiden, Boche's daughter of the ether, passed for ages her existence in the great expanse of heaven, o'er the prairies yet unfolded. Wearisome the maiden growing, her existence sad and hopeless, thus alone to live for ages in the infinite expanses of the air above the sea foam, in the far outstretching spaces, in a solitude of ether, she descended to the ocean, waves her coach and waves her pillow. Thereupon the rising storm wind, flying from the east in fierceness, whips the ocean into surges, strikes the stars with sprays of ocean, till the waves are white with fervour. To and fro they toss the maiden, storm-encircled, hapless maiden, with her sport the rolling billows, with her play the storm wind forces, on the blue back of the waters. On the white wreathed waves of ocean play the forces of the salt sea, with the lone and helpless maiden, till at last in full conception, union now of force and beauty, sink the storm winds into slumber. Overburdened now the maiden cannot rise above the surface. 700 years she wandered, ages 9 of man's existence, swam the ocean hither, thither, could not rise above the waters, conscious only of her travail. 700 years she laboured ere her firstborn was delivered. Thus she swam as water-mother, toward the east and also southward, toward the west and also northward. Swam the sea in all directions, frightened at the strife of storm winds, swam in travail, swam unceasing, ere her firstborn was delivered. Then began she gently weeping, spake these measures, heavy-hearted. Woe is me, my life hard-fated, woe is me, in this my travail, into what have I now fallen? Woe is me, that I, unhappy, left my home in subtle ether, came to dwell amid the sea foam, to be tossed by rolling billows, to be rocked by winds and waters, on the far outstretching waters, in the salt sea's vast expanses. Knowing only pain and trouble, better far for me, O Ukko, were I maiden in the ether than within these ocean spaces, to become a water-mother. All this life is cold and dreary, painful here is every motion, as I linger in the waters, as I wander through the ocean. Ukko, thou, O God, up yonder, thou the ruler of the heavens, come thou hither, thou art needed. Come thou hither, I implore thee, to deliver me from trouble, to deliver me in travail. Come, I pray thee, hither hasten, hasten more than thou art needed, haste and help this helpless maiden. When she ceased her supplications, scarce a moment onward passes, ere a boacher's duck descending, hastens toward the water-mother, comes a-flying hither, thither, seeks herself a place for nesting. Flies she eastward, flies she westward, circles northward, circles southward, cannot find a grassy hillock, not the smallest bit of verdure, cannot find a spot protected, cannot find a place befitting where to make her nest in safety. Flying slowly, looking round her, she descries no place for resting, thinking loud and long debating, and her words are such as follows. Built I in the winds my dwelling, on the floods my place of nesting? Surely would the winds destroy it, far away the waves would wash it. Then the daughter of the Ether, now the hapless water-mother, raised her shoulders out of water, raised her knees above the ocean, that the duck might build her dwelling, build her nesting place in safety. Thereupon the duck in beauty, flying slowly, looking round her, spies the shoulders of the maiden, sees the knees of Ether's daughter, now the hapless water-mother, thinks them to be grassy hillocks on the blue back of the ocean. Thence she flies and hovers slowly, lightly on the knee she settles, finds a nesting place befitting where to lay her eggs in safety. Here she builds her humble dwelling, lays her eggs within at pleasure, 6 the golden eggs she lays there, then a 7th, an egg of iron, sits upon her eggs to hatch them, quickly warms them up on the kneecap of the hapless water-mother. Hatches one day, then a second, then a 3rd day sits and hatches. Warmer grows the water round her, warmer is her bed in ocean, while her knee with fire is kindled, and her shoulders too are burning. Fire in every vein is coursing. Quick the maiden moves her shoulders, shakes her members in succession, shakes the nest from its foundation, and the eggs fall into ocean, dash in pieces on the bottom of the deep and boundless waters. In the sand they do not perish, not the pieces in the ocean, but transformed in wondrous beauty, all the fragments come together, forming pieces 2 in number, one the upper, one the lower, equal to the one the other. From one half the egg, the lower, grows the nether vault of terror. From the upper half remaining grows the upper vault of heaven. From the white part come the moonbeams, from the yellow part the sunshine, from the motley part the starlight, from the dark part grows the cloudage, and the days speed onward swiftly, quickly do the years fly over, from the shining of the new sun, from the lighting of the full moon. Still the daughter of the Ether swims the sea as water-mother, with the floods outstretched before her, and behind her sky and ocean. Finally, about the 9th year, in the summer of the 10th year, lifts her head above the surface, lifts her forehead from the waters, and begins at last her workings, now commences her creations, on the azure water ridges, on the mighty waste before her. Where her hand she turned in water, there arose a fertile hillock. Wheresoever her foot she rested, there she made a hole for fishes. Where she dived beneath waters, fell the many deeps of ocean. Where upon her side she turned her, there the level banks have risen. Where her head was pointed landward, there appeared wide bays and inlets. Where from shore she swam a distance, and upon her back she rested, there the rocks she made and fashioned, and the hidden reefs created, where the ships are wrecked so often, where so many lives have perished. Thus created were the islands, rocks were fastened in the ocean, pillars of the sky were planted, fields and forests were created, checkered stones of many colours, gleaming in the silver sunlight. All the rocks stood well established, but the singer, Wainamoinen, had not yet beheld the sunshine, had not seen the golden moonlight, still remaining undelivered. Wainamoinen, old and trusty, lingering within his dungeon, 30 summers altogether, and of winters also 30, peaceful on the waste of waters, on the broad sea's yielding bosom, well reflected, long considered, how unborn to live and flourish in the spaces wrapped in darkness, in uncomfortable limits, where he had not seen the moonlight, had not seen the silver sunshine. Thereupon these words he uttered, let himself be heard in this wise. Take, O moon, I pray thee, take me, thou, O sun above me, take me, thou, O bear of heaven, from this dark and dreary prison, from these unbefitting portals, from this narrow place of resting, from this dark and gloomy dwelling, hence to wander from the ocean, hence to walk upon the islands, on the dry land walk and wander, like an ancient hero wander, walk in open air and breathe it, thus to see the moon at evening, thus to see the silver sunlight, thus to see the barren heaven, that the stars I may consider. Since the moon refused to free him, and the sun would not deliver, nor the great bear give assistance, his existence growing weary, and his life but an annoyance, bursts he then the outer portals of his dark and dismal fortress. With his strong but unnamed finger opens he the lock resisting. With the toes upon his left foot, with the fingers of his right hand, creeps he through the yielding portals to the threshold of his dwelling. On his knees across the threshold, throws himself head foremost forward, plunges into deeps of ocean, plunges hither, plunges thither, turning with his hands the water. Swims he northward, swims he southward, swims he eastward, swims he westward, studying his new surroundings. Thus our hero reached the water, rested 5 years in the ocean, 6 long years, and even 7 years, till the autumn of the 8th year, when at last he leaves the waters, stops upon a promontory, on a coast bereft of verdure. On his knees he leaves the ocean, on the land he plants his right foot, on the solid ground his left foot, quickly turns his hands about him, stands erect to see the sunshine, stands to see the golden moonlight, that he may behold the great bear, that he may the stars consider. Thus our hero, Wainamoinen, thus the wonderful enchanter, was delivered from his mother Ilmatar, the Ether's daughter. Then arose old Wainamoinen with his feet upon the island washed by ocean, broad expanse devoid of verdure. There remained he many summers, there he lived as many winters, on the island vast and vacant, well considered, long reflected, who for him should sow the island, who for him the seeds should scatter. Thought at last of Pellerwoinen, firstborn of the plains and prairies, when a slender boy called Sampsa, who should sow the vacant island, who the forest seeds should scatter. Pellerwoinen thus consenting sows with diligence the island, seeds upon the lands he scatters, seeds in every swamp and lowland, forest seeds upon the loose earth, on the firm soil sows the acorns, fir trees sows he on the mountains, pine trees also on the hilltops, many shrubs in every valley, birches sows he in the marshes, in the loose soil sows the alders, in the lowlands sows the lindens, in the moist earth sows the willow, mountain ash in virgin places, on the banks of streams the hawthorn, junipers in hilly regions. This the work of Pellerwoinen, slender Sampsa in his childhood. Soon the fertile seeds were sprouting, soon the forest trees were growing, soon appeared the tops of fir trees, and the pines were far outspreading. Birches rose from all the marshes, in the loose soil grew the alders, in the mellow soil the lindens, junipers were also growing, junipers with clustered berries, berries on the hawthorn branches. Now the hero, Wainamoinen, stands aloft to look about him, how the Sampsa seeds are growing, how the crop of Pellerwoinen, sees the young trees thickly spreading, sees the forest rise in beauty. But the oak tree has not sprouted, tree of heaven is not growing, still within the acorn sleeping, its own happiness enjoying. Then he waited 3 nights longer, and as many days he waited till a week had vanished, then again the work examined. But the oak tree was not growing, had not left her acorn dwelling. Wainamoinen, ancient hero, spies 4 maidens in the distance, water brides. He spies a 5th one, on the soft and sandy seashore, in the dewy grass and flowers, on a point extending seaward, near the forests of the island. Some were moving, some were raking what was mown together, in a windrow on the meadow. From the ocean rose a giant, mighty Tursas, tall and hardy, pressed compactly all the grasses that the maidens had been raking, when a fire within them kindles, and the flames shot up to heaven, till the windrows burned to ashes, only ashes now remaining of the grasses raked together. In the ashes of the windrows, tender leaves the giant places, in the leaves he plants an acorn, from the acorn quickly sprouting, grows the oak tree, tall and stately, from the ground enriched by ashes, newly raked by water maidens. Spread the oak tree's many branches, rounds itself a broad corona, raises it above the storm clouds. Far it stretches out its branches, stops the white clouds in their courses. With its branches hides the sunlight, with its many leaves the moonbeams, and the starlight dies in heaven. Wainamoinen, old and trusty, thought a while and well considered how to kill the mighty oak tree, first created for his pleasure, how to fell the tree majestic, how to lop its 100 branches. Sad the lives of man and hero, sad the homes of ocean dwellers, if the sun shines not upon them, if the moonlight does not cheer them. Is there not some mighty hero, was there never born a giant, that can fell the mighty oak tree, that can lop its 100 branches? Wainamoinen, deeply thinking, spake these words, soliloquizing. Carpe, daughter of the ether, ancient mother of my being, Lönnrot, my nurse and helper, loan to me the water forces. Great the powers of the waters, loan to me the strength of oceans, to upset this mighty oak tree, to uproot this tree of evil, that again may shine the sunlight, that the moon once more may glimmer. Straightway rose a form from oceans, rose a hero from the waters. Nor belonged he to the largest, nor belonged he to the smallest. Long was he as man's forefinger, taller than the hand of woman. On his head a cap of copper, boots upon his feet were copper, gloves upon his hands were copper, and its stripes were copper-coloured. Belt around him made of copper, hatchet in his belt was copper, and the handle of his hatchet was as long as hand of woman. Of a finger's breadth the blade was. Then the trusty Wainamoinen thought a while and well considered, and his measures are as follow. Art thou, sir, divine or human? Which of these thou only knowest? Tell me what thy name and station, very like a man thou lookest, has the bearing of a hero, though the length of man's first finger, scarce as tall as hoof of reindeer. Then again spoke Wainamoinen to the form from out the ocean. Verily I think thee human, of the race of pygmy heroes, might as well be dead or dying, fit for nothing but to perish. Answered thus the pygmy hero, spake the small one from the ocean to the valiant Wainamoinen. Truly am I god and hero, from the tribes that ruled the ocean. Come I here to fell the oak tree, lop its branches with my hatchet. Wainamoinen, old and trusty, answers thus the sea-born hero. Never hast thou force sufficient, not to thee has strength been given, to uproot this mighty oak tree, to upset this thing of evil, nor to lop its 100 branches. Scarcely had he finished speaking, scarcely had he moved his eyelids, ere the pygmy, full unfolding, quick becomes a mighty giant. With one step he leaves the ocean, plants himself, a mighty hero, on the forest fields surrounding. With his head the clouds he pierces, to his knees his beard extending, and his locks fall to his ankles. Far apart appear his eyeballs, far apart his feet are stationed. Farther still his mighty shoulders. Now begins his axe to sharpen, quickly to an edge he whets it, using 6 hard blocks of sandstone, and of softer whetstones 7. Straightway to the oak tree turning, thither stalks the mighty giant, in his raiment long and roomy, flapping in the winds of heaven. With his second step he totters on the land of darker colour. With his third stop firmly planted, reaches he the oak tree's branches, strikes the trunk with sharpened hatchet. With one mighty swing he strikes it, with a second blow he cuts it. As his blade descends the third time, from his axe the sparks fly upward, from the oak tree fire out shooting. Ere the axe descends a 4th time, yields the oak with 100 branches, shaking earth and heaven in falling. Eastward, far the trunk extending, far to westward flew the tree-tops, to the south the leaves were scattered, to the north its 100 branches. Whosoever a branch has taken has obtained eternal welfare. Who secures himself a tree-top, he has gained the master magic. Who the foliage has gathered has delight that never ceases. Of the chips some had been scattered also many splinters on the blue back of the ocean smooth and mirrored, rocked there by the winds and waters, like a boat upon the billows. Storm winds blew them to the Northland, some the ocean currents carried. Northland's fair and slender maiden, washing on the shore a headdress, beating on the rocks her garments, rinsing were her silken raiment in the waters of Pohjola, there beheld the chips in splinters, carried by the winds and waters. In a bag the chips she gathered, took them to the ancient courtyard, there to make enchanted arrows for the great magician, there to shape them into weapons for the skilful archer, since the mighty oak has fallen, now has lost its 100 branches, that the north may see the sunshine, see the gentle gleam of moonlight, that the clouds may keep their courses, may extend the vault of heaven over every lake and river, over the banks of every island. Groves arose in varied beauty, beautifully grew the forests, and again the vines and flowers. Birds again sang in the treetops, noisily the merry thrushes, and the cuckoos in the birch trees. On the mountains grew the berries, golden flowers in the meadows, and the herbs of many colours, many kinds of vegetation, but the barley is not growing. Wainamoinen, old and trusty, goes away and well considers by the borders of the waters, on the ocean's sandy margin, finds 6 seeds of golden barley, even 7 ripened kernels on the shore of Upper Northland, in the sand upon the seashore, hides them in his trusty pouches, fashioned from the skin of squirrel, some were made from skin of marten, hastens forth the seeds to scatter, quickly sows the barley kernels on the brinks of Kalevala waters, on the Osma hills and lowlands. Hark, the titmouse wildly crying from the aspen words as follow. Osma's barley will not flourish, not the barley of Wainola, if the soil be not made ready, if the forest be not levelled, and the branches burned to ashes. Wainamoinen, wise and ancient, made himself an axe for chopping, then began to clear the forest, then began the trees to level, felled the trees of all descriptions, only left the birch tree standing, for the birds a place of resting, where might sing the sweet-voiced cuckoo, sacred bird in sacred branches. Down from heaven came the eagle, through the air became a flying, that he might this thing consider, and he spake the words that follow. Wherefore, ancient Wainamoinen, hast thou left the slender birch tree, left the birch tree only standing? Wainamoinen thus made answer. Therefore is the birch left standing, that the birds may nest within it, that the eagle there may rest him, there may sing the sacred cuckoo. Spake the eagle thus replying, Good indeed thy hero judgment, that the birch tree thou hast left us, left the sacred birch tree standing, as a resting place for eagles, and for birds of every feather, even I may rest upon it. Quickly then this bird of heaven kindled fire among the branches. Soon the flames are fanned by north winds, and the east winds lend their forces, burn the trees of all descriptions, burn them all to dust and ashes, only is the birch left standing. Wainamoinen, wise and ancient, brings his magic grains of barley, brings he forth his 7 seed grains, brings them from his trusty pouches, fashioned from the skin of squirrel, some were made from skin of marten. Thence to sow his seeds he hastes the barley grains to scatter, speaks unto himself these measures. I the seeds of life am sowing, sowing through my open fingers, from the hand of my Creator, in this soil enriched with ashes, in this soil to sprout and flourish. Ancient Mother, thou that livest far below the earth and ocean, Mother of the fields and forests, bring the rich soil to producing, bring the seed grains to the sprouting, that the barley well may flourish. Never will the earth unaided yield the ripe nutritious barley. Never will her force be wanting if the givers give assistance, if the givers grace the sowing, grace the daughters of creation. Rise, O earth, from out thy slumber, from the slumberland of ages. Let the barley grains be sprouting, let the blades themselves be starting, let the verdant stalks be rising, let the ears themselves be growing, and 100-fold producing, from my ploughing and my sowing, from my skilled and honest labour. Ukko, thou, O God, up yonder, thou, O Father of the heavens, thou that livest high in ether, curbest all the clouds of heaven, holdest in the air thy counsel, holdest in the clouds good counsel. From the east dispatch a cloudlet, from the northeast send a rain cloud, from the west another send us, from the northwest still another. Quickly from the south a warm cloud, that the rain may fall from heaven, that the clouds may drop their honey, that the ears may fill and ripen, that the barley fields may rustle. Thereupon benignant Ukko, Father of the heavens, held his counsel in the cloud space, held good counsel in the ether. From the east he sent a cloudlet, from the northeast sent a rain cloud, from the west another sent he, from the northwest still another, quickly from the south a warm cloud, joined in seams the clouds together, sewed together all their edges, grasped the cloud and hurled it earthward. Quick the rain cloud drops her honey, quick the raindrops fall from heaven, that the ears may quickly ripen, that the barley crop may rustle. Straightway grow the seeds of barley, from the germ that the blade unfolding, richly coloured ears arising, from the rich soil of the fallow, from the work of Wainamoinen. Here a few days pass unnoted, and as many nights fly over. When the 7th day had journeyed, on the morning of the 8th day, Wainamoinen, wise and ancient, went to view his crop of barley, how his ploughing, how his sowing, how his labours were resulting. Found his crop of barley growing, found the blades were triple-knotted, and the ears he found six-sided. Wainamoinen, old and trusty, turned his face and looked about him. Lo, there comes a springtime cuckoo. Spying out the slender birch tree, rests upon it, sweetly singing. Wherefore is the silver birch tree left unharmed of all the forest? Spake the ancient Wainamoinen. Therefore I have left the birch tree only growing, home for thee for joyful singing. Call thou here, O sweet-voiced cuckoo, sing thou here from throat of velvet, sing thou here with voice of silver, sing the cuckoo's golden flute notes, call at morning, call at evening, call within the hour of noontide, for the better growth of forests, for the ripening of the barley, for the richness of the Northland, for the joy of Kalevala. Kalevala.